Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the living room. Thank you all for being here, everyone in the room, and those of you who are joining us online. We're very excited tonight to have our one and only, because we are so busy this year, Patient Roundtable, which is one of my most favorite living rooms, where we get to share hope between one another. Normally we have key opinion leaders, different stakeholders, people coming in to talk about different aspects of the disease, but tonight it's all about you, and it's all about your voice and who you are as a person with cancer and who you are as a person without cancer, and what kind of support that we can bring to one another. So I'm really, really excited to have everyone here tonight. So with that, I think we're gonna start with the around the room, but I'd like you to maybe introduce yourself, especially because there's new folks. Say who you are, and talk a little bit about your own personal cancer journey.
Okay. I'm Bonnie. I'm Danielle and Andrea's mother. And Jared's mother, he's not here. But I'm a 14-year lung cancer survivor.
I'll correct her if she says something wrong, by the way.
Yeah.
Just so you guys all know. I will make sure. Yeah.
But, you know, I started this foundation a long time ago, really because of the injustice in the research funding for lung cancer that I just, you know, discovered while I was going through treatment myself. And I made a promise to myself while I was in the Barca Lounger getting chemotherapy, because there were no targeted drugs at the time. Tarceva was in clinical trial. And I made a promise that if I made it through the knothole, I would do something about that. And we've been 14 years pressing ourselves to get something done about that. I'd like to introduce a special, you're all special, everybody in this room is special, mostly to patients, but we have a visitor from Washington, D.C. today, and her name is Laurie Fenton, and she's the CEO of the Lung Cancer Alliance.
Hi, Laurie.
We've been doing a lot of things.
No pressure.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of things collaborating with their group, and you know, we're getting a lot of work done and having a lot of fun, and we're doing a collaborative 5K in Philadelphia this year as well. So happy to have you here, Laurie. And on that note, well.
We are, but before we do that, I just want to, so I was in, Michelle and I and Jennifer and Nicole, who some of you may have met at the last living room. She's fairly new to the foundation. We're in Chicago. It feels like yesterday, but it was
last week.
Thursday, I think. We had our what we call from here our remote living room, but we actually had our Chicago living room, and it was fantastic. And one of the things, because I don't have my mom there as sort of my what would you call us? Moderator, but that sounds so like...
Well, your co-person.
Anyway, just as my co-person, I felt the need to kind of tell her story for her, and from the perspective of the daughter, right, and the caregiver, and I know there's caregivers in the room, and you have no idea how important you are to the people that you are walking through this with. And it was just interesting to see the reaction from some of the folks who didn't know us, and sort of my perspective on your diagnosis and your journey, and then starting the foundation and what we've been able to accomplish. And I am obviously incredibly proud of of this woman right here, first and foremost, but what we have been able to accomplish in such a short amount of time, because although you were diagnosed 14 years ago, the foundation is 11 and change years old. Oh, yeah, yeah, it was just 12, yeah. And we've been able to raise over, you know, $30 million and 80 plus, you know, % of which goes right out the door to support programs like this and the all too important research in order to keep the ball rolling. So just a little pat on your back for what you've been able to do.
Well, it was my passion at the time was to raise money for research and give it to my UCSF team. And actually, these people in these pictures behind me that was my radiation oncologist, Lisa Buhar. Fred Marcus was my oncologist, and Melissa Lim is still my pulmonologist. And my thoracic surgeon was David Jablons at UCSF.
But that is actually her x-ray as well.
And that is my x-ray, my tumor. My tumor was actually on my heart. And I was told by many people there was nothing they could do, and this could maybe start the conversation tonight. And that obviously wasn't what I wanted to hear. So I found my way inadvertently up to UCSF and sitting down with this crazy thoracic surgeon And he said, Bonnie, he said, you know, I know you've already heard from several people that there's nothing you can do because my tumor was invading my heart and it was just inoperable, they said. So he said, what do you want us to do? And I said, if I'm going to die from this disease, I don't want it to be because I did nothing. So I want you and your multidisciplinary team to throw everything you have at me. And I'll take it. I won't complain. I won't say a word. Let's just see if we can do something. So he put together the team. He took it to tumor board. He talked to a bunch of people. They came back and said, we're going to put you on a rigorous chemotherapy. They put me on, some of the folks in the room tonight from a pharmaceutical company will know how toxic a double platinum is. But they put me on that ×3 for my first dose. And then radiation Monday through Friday. So I had chemotherapy every Friday, and Monday through Friday I had radiation. And I was lucky. The goal was to move the tumor enough away from the heart to go in and try to get it out of there. And after about 14 hours and 3 surgeons, they were able to get it out. So my point is, in telling this story, is that, you know, you're in charge of your own treatment. Yeah. We like to help you, and all we can do is help and, you know, advise you and tell you what to do. But you're in charge. And when you're having a conversation with your physician, and don't ever be talking to anybody that doesn't have a multidisciplinary team like this, and tumor boards and genomic profiling and the full set of options for you. Don't let anybody tell you that you don't need a second opinion or any of those things. If you don't like what you hear, go get a second opinion, because I got 3 and 4. And I can guarantee you I wouldn't be sitting here today if I listened to the first couple of people. So maybe that's a good way to start.
It's a great segue. And those of you who are veterans here at the living room and or online who have been watching for a while have been hearing us talk for 12, 18 months now about this shared decision making, and it's what you're talking about, and that conversation with your physician, and what are your goals of care, and what might that look like based on the options given you. So. So I think that's going to be a really important part of tonight's discussion.
And maybe after you give everybody a little history on your story, you'll tell us what's keeping you up at night. If everybody would add that to your story tonight, that'll help us get to a really good living room and where we want to go.
I'm Ina, and I was diagnosed in December 2014, an accidental finding. I never smoked. Have to say it. I mean, I have to say it because everybody that didn't know me and knew that I never smoked asked that question.
Yeah, they still asked you.
It's like everybody asks you. But to your point about the early diagnosis and screening, I went in for something totally unrelated, which was fine, and they did a CAT scan, which was a big deal, and picked up the lobes of my lung for an abdominal CAT scan, so you have to wonder about that. However, it showed a fairly large nodule in my left upper lobe, and everyone thought for sure it was cancer. And the pulmonologist who first told me, showed me my scan next to a textbook scan, and you really couldn't tell the difference. I mean, the tumor was like a hard-boiled egg-sized tumor. I had mycoplasmosis pneumonia, which is a crazy kind of pneumonia, like 18 years before. And it laid down scar tissue. And the scar tissue, actually, it was a scar tissue carcinoma, which is very unusual. So we went around. We did go to UCSF. We did get second opinions, and even third. And I actually was told, and I think this is also an important thing, while I think it's really important to go to a major medical center, I was told by a full professor of pulmonary medicine at UCSF, you don't need to come here for what you have. Well, no, and I think he was right.
Okay.
I really do, because he said, this is a basic, we can go in and get, go find the best cardiothoracic surgeon you can find in your local hospital that you think is good. And why do you have to put your family through coming to UC? His opinion was I didn't need the hassle of UCSF or Stanford, which I probably wouldn't have gone to. But anyway, simply go to a place where you're comfortable and your family can be comfortable, because it wasn't that complicated a surgery. It was a real straightforward, I mean, awful, awful, and I had to have 2. But basically, it was an interesting, and I know we're talking, I think if I have a recurrence, and I do have, also nodules in the right side, I have about 1 2/3 of my left lung gone, so I have a little bit of left lung. But I think that if I, have to have treatment, I'll definitely go back to UCSF.
Yeah. And, I would just like to say 2 things. One, you don't have to go to an academic center.
Right.
But you do need to go to a center that is known for excellence in lung cancer. And I really kind of I'm a bit taken aback that a physician would say, "You don't really need me. Just go to anybody." And they
well,
can
he didn't
mop
say
this out.
he didn't
It's
say
like,
anybody.
well,
He didn't say anybody. He was pretty specific about the quality of surgeon that I needed to look for, and where I needed to go. Right?
Did this person help you get that appointment? And
Well,
set it up for you?
I already knew who I wanted to go to, or so I thought I did, and he confirmed that was a good choice. So I guess, it was a little bit different. I know I've been coming here for almost 2 years, and I don't think I ever told that part.
No.
There's always more, There's always more to
And
this.
I'm not picking on you, but there's people online and whatever, they're going to just go to anybody. No, you want to make sure you go to people that are educated and know what
Absolutely.
they're doing. Yeah.
And of course, for an oncologist right now, I mean, again, because I don't need treatment at the moment, and hopefully I won't, but who knows?
Right.
I have a pretty general oncologist, and I love her. But if if something pops up and I need to have it treated, believe me, I'm going. I know.
I think that's a really good point, because we hear all the time from people around the country. It's much more convenient to be treated as close to home as possible, right? So that your family can come if you need to, you can get support and that sort of thing. But I think when something changes, that's the time to think, okay, do I need to now go get a second opinion from a key opinion leader in more of an academic setting, and then have a plan, and then come back to my community setting and have my treatments there.
Right.
So,
Which is also why, so many cancer centers are popping up all around the country.
Right. And there are community centers that are actually academic-like care. We just have to make sure those are the ones you get to.
And make sure that you're asking the right questions, right? And you guys have heard me say time and time again, particularly in the more rural community settings, that between solid tumor and blood cancers, there's 100+ different types, and to expect that any one human being could know everything there is to know about whatever walks through their door is unfair and unrealistic. So it's very important that you do the research to find out who the experts are as close to you as possible, so that you can get that opinion.
Right.
Thanks.
How do you follow that?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm Sally, and I was proactive, and I was a very high risk for getting lung cancer. And I was told about a study, the International Early Lung Cancer Assessment Program. And first I thought, I don't want to know whether I'm going to get lung cancer. But then I thought, my mother had it, her brother had it, my paternal grandfather had it, and actually my aunt by marriage, but that's not a bloodline. And I just figured my mother was very lucky. She was found first by accident in 1975. She thought she'd broken a rib, which she had, and in an x-ray they found the tumor. And she'd had an x-ray just 3 months before, a routine one, and it didn't show up. So hers obviously was found early. Came back 2.5 years later on the other side. They said it was a new primary. And then she lived 20 some odd years before the third one came in her mid-80s, which eventually caused her demise. So I thought, if I can be lucky like that, I need to know if I'm going to get it. So I entered the study, and you had to qualify for it, and I did because of family members and that I'd previously been a smoker. And I hate to say that part because of the stigma of that, but that was one of the requirements. And So they found nodules in all my lungs, which of course panicked me. And I was reassured by the cancer center at Peninsula, which was where the study was being done. And I was reassured by my internist and everything that these were just little nodules and that I'd be watched. And 5 years later, one of them grew. And because of this study, it was found early. I had surgery. I had my lower right lobe removed, and knock on wood, it's 9 years. And I was told there was great likelihood it could return, but knock on wood, it has not thus far. And they still watch me because of the other nodules. But at this point, nothing has to be done. So I feel very fortunate, and I'm really a big believer in being proactive and in if you are at risk for lung cancer or think you might be, that you do something about it, because the earlier it can be found, the better off you are.
So I just have a couple comments before we move on. One, thank you for self-identifying as a former smoker, because I think it's really important. We hear all too often, I was diagnosed with lung cancer and I never smoke. But what we don't hear is people who are brave enough to come up and say that they did, that they made a mistake, that they wish they could change, they can't, but they're people too. And to really put a face to this disease. And Ron said it prior to you don't have to smoke to get lung cancer, right? But we need more people just being people saying, hey,
and
right?
also that people realize that just because you quit smoking doesn't mean you're not going to get lung cancer. I had quit smoking 15 years before I entered this study.
Yeah.
So.
And you know, I cite this published article in the New England Journal of Medicine all the time. It says that the biggest cause of tobacco-related disease is heart, and then second vascular, and then 31 cancers, not just lung. And somewhere along the way, lung cancer got singled out as the only cancer related to smoking. So my joy will be the day that a patient doesn't have to feel like they're at Alcoholics Anonymous and they have to stand up there and say, I was a smoker or I was a non-smoker. We don't care. We just want to keep you all alive and thriving. So hopefully the day will come that people don't have to identify themselves.
Well, the reason I identify it is because that was part of qualifying for being in this
and that's,
study.
you know what, good for you.
Yeah. But I think it's important. So the second thing I wanted to just comment on is Sally being an early detection win, and it was before the National Lung Cancer Screening Trial and before screening was approved in this high-risk population of patients. It was a study that you were proactive about. And I think it's important to recognize that one of the potential silver linings in being diagnosed with lung cancer is an opportunity to talk about screening. When you're talking to someone about having been diagnosed, it's an opportunity to talk about how important it is for people to be screened who might be at high risk. And less than 4% of the people who actually qualify for screening are getting screened right now. And to Sally's point, if we could find these cancers earlier, the numbers that 5 years behind or not, they would change, and they would change dramatically. So I think really recognizing an opportunity during this conversation about your personal journey is a conversation with somebody who has not been diagnosed to kind of educate them on the screening. So those are just two things I wanted to point out. So thanks, Sally. Sorry to interrupt. So we had a couple of what keeps you up at nights, but not really a ton, right? I think we kind of covered them sort of as they came, with the exception of senior parents and children going off to college, and I completely share that keep you up at night, because my youngest is going off to college this summer, and my husband and I joked that I don't know if I like him enough to live in the house without children. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about. We keep joking about it, so I completely. You just
get a lot of dogs.
Yeah, we already have a lot of dogs. But I guess we talked a little bit about people worrying about progression or plans B, C, D, or E, or whatever that might be. And I guess my question is, where do you guys go with whatever your challenges might be? Like, who do you bounce that off of? I mean, obviously you use this as a space, but to sort of Dave's point, you know, this is once a month, and of course you can call whenever you want, but where else do you find that support? And Ron, you said sort of that support group is called co-something. What did you call it? Sorry, you don't have a mic.
I was saying that caregivers can also be known as co-survivors.
Co-survivors. And I think the caregiver, whether it's a spouse or a friend or a family member or people you meet in a support group or foundations, where do you guys go to find that hope other than when you walk in and see it just really big on the wall?
Can I just add something to the end of your sentence?
Sure.
That's very important, but where do you go when you're scared and you don't want to scare your family?
Because you were a big fat liar a lot.
I was a big fat liar.
That's true.
And so where do you go when that's keeping you up at night? And we had somebody, they're probably online, they're always online. And the husband who was married to the lady that was, we'll just call her Jane, who had lung cancer. And he came to me one night and he said, Bonnie, he said, you know, where do I learn how to chat with my wife and my daughter about this? You know, we all have different feelings and we're all kind of walking around and we're living our lives. But I think, you know, we're just not sharing. And I said, you know,
keep going.
You just have to get the pink elephant out of the room. You have to tell her you're afraid she's going to die. And she has to tell you she's afraid she's going to die and what is going to happen to you if she does. And then you both have to talk to your daughter all in the same room and say, you're afraid too, so let's talk about our fear and let's see what we can do to deal with that.
Yeah, and I think that's so important because it's the person diagnosed with the cancer is not the only one necessarily with the fears, right?
Everybody has cancer.
Yeah.
In the house.
Everybody has cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how to have those conversations.
Yeah.